Influencers are quitting social media and returning to a 9 to 5. Let's talk about it.
See, here's the thing. I tell you guys this all the time, but for some reason, you guys don't seem to listen. Followers do not equate to money when you aren't posting the right type of content. So the other day, I had a coaching call with a young man who has 900K followers here on TikTok. And a lot of his friends think that he's making thousands and thousands of dollars, which he's not at all. The only money that he has coming in is from the TikTok creative program. And that's not even enough for him to pay his bills. So, of course, like any normal.
Let's just think about that for a second. You have close to 1 million followers on TikTok or whatever social media platform, and you don't even have the ability to pay your bills full time.
One-on-one, I gave him like a brief profile audit. Main thing I noticed is all he posts is interview style content, him interviewing people on the street. Now this type of content is great because he enjoys making it, he really likes doing it, totally fine for him. But when it comes to monetization, he's having struggles because he has.
You never really know what's going on behind the scenes, bro. It's probably clear now to anybody. But you'll have some people with only 2,000 followers and they have a lot more clients that you would than you would think. And it's all organic and it's all come from Instagram. But they still only have 2,000 followers. And you look at them and say, dang, they're not doing nothing. Well, behind the scenes, they're making a couple 100K a month off of their business to 1 million a month. But it just depends on, again, it just depends on what it is they're doing. And then, of course, how niche it is. And there's so many different factors. But you would not guess that some of these people are making as much money as they are. And then you would look at somebody that has millions and millions of followers, or they look like they're doing everything and they're not making nothing. And then, of course, you have people who are switched up. You have people who have the millions of followers, have the millions of likes, fans, or whatever, and they're actually making money. But you have a lot of people that get the wrong idea of why their fan base is following them, or why their followers are pressing that follow button in the first place. It happens a lot with the people that be doing OnlyFans and then they try to write a book and they're like, bro, why are people buying my stuff, man? Or they have you have people that blow up off of their body and then they try to release some music or they try to transition into a completely different industry and they're wondering what's going on. So it's interesting, bro. It's interesting.
His content doesn't provide any type of value other than humor. Of course, we went over a whole content revamp, and I essentially told him, you can't just stick with humor. You have to give people value. That's how you're going to monetize your platform. If you're providing some type of value that brands want to see, if you're providing some type of value that people are willing to pay for, that's how you're going to make money off your content.
I think she gave him some wise advice. But the thing here is that I want to touch on a lot of people see these people on social media, especially, average everyday working person. You see a person with 1 million, 2, 3 million followers, you think they're living this grand life. And it's really not true. Actually, a lot of people that are working 9 to 5, especially ones who have skill sets, are living better than your favorite influencer. Just keep that in mind next time.
Noticed over the past year or so is that a lot of influencers or YouTubers, creators that I was watching 10, 5, 3 years ago who were doing really, really well are now going back into traditional job roles. I've seen a lot go into
That is facts, bro. I'm telling you, the four main things I would want to be doing for the rest of my life: fashion model, actor, and then music and digital art. But within those categories, the content around that is mindset content, motivation content, and then of course, everything that comes along with that. But then I also, on the art side, have a character that just does all of those things, but with a unique angle or a unique twist to it, however you want to say. But even with all of that, how much you can monetize off of that, I still have a job within IT cybersecurity because again, I still have my experience within the technology side. In case anything was to happen, I always have that to fall back on. In most cases, if you're making that amount of money, and you have an idea of you at least have some sort of an idea of how to invest that into people who will make sure you keep the money, then you're good. But having that while you're building yourself up to that threshold where you can pass it and you're good, that middle ground is what a lot of people miss. And then I said it in another video, I refuse to be a struggling actor or a struggling model or a struggling, music artist. Because these days, the days where you can be discovered in a shopping store is even less common than it was back then. And even then it was really hard to make stuff pop. And now that everything is so easy to blow up, it's so easy to go viral. You can literally save up a couple $100s and blow something up yourself, some ads. It's a different landscape now, bro. It's completely different. That's a whole separate topic. But yeah, man, I could not be somebody who is struggling. But again, I think it comes back down to understanding what you enjoy doing and what you see yourself doing for the rest of your life. Because you have some people that say, oh yeah, I want to play the guitar or I want to be a dancer. And then they get sucked into one thing that was supposed to just be making the money so they can do that thing and spend more time on it until they can monetize that passion that they have, but they just get too sucked into something. So you have those type of people. So it's kind of having a balance. If you're going that route, it's finding a balance.
Real estate, become receptionists, social media managers, and even just some just going back and getting like a traditional degree. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But one thing I've heard almost all of them say during their heyday at the time where they were doing really, really well on social media is that, you know, I can never work for someone else, never have a traditional job, it's just not for me, etc., etc. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's okay to state what you want for your life. But one thing you have to realize, especially if you are a creator or a creative of any sort, whether it's in the creator economy or if you're an actor or whatever.
At the end of the day, you're working for somebody. Some people will say you're working for yourself, but you're working for your customers. If you're a CEO of your business, you're working for your. I saw a video by Brandon Carter, and at the end of the day, you're working for somebody, bro. But it just depends on what you prefer. You can make an argument that it's like a perspective on how you look at stuff, but you can either be working for a company, some corporate job. You could be working for yourself, saying you a CEO of this company here. But at the end of the day, you're working for somebody, bro. You're working for your team. You're working for your team. If you don't work and put in the work to make sure everything is where it needs to be, then how is your team going to help you to grow the business? You're working for somebody at the end of the day. If you're a music artist and you say you work for yourself, you working for your fans, bro. You working for your fans. If you don't put out music after you gain 200,000 fans off of a song they like, and you just say, "Oh yeah, I work for myself, bro. I'm gonna put out. The next song I'm gonna put out is gonna be in like 2 years," and then your fans gone. How you gonna make money, bro? That's why this silly stuff of, I work for myself. I don't think that way. If you're a real estate agent, you're working for your clients. You're working for your clients. If you own your business, you're working for somebody. But at the end of the day, you have to give up something to get something. But it just goes to picking what you want to do and how you want to make money. Okay, everybody's different. But I get what they're saying. But at the end of the day, you're working for somebody, bro. If you're a YouTube content creator, you ain't working for yourself. You're working for YouTube. They paying your check. They paying your check, bro. Your fans are paying your check. I've always preached skill sets, bro.
Any sort of non-traditional career field, you have to be so much more diligent with your money than everyone else who has a traditional job. Even if you're making £20,000 a month right now and your mates are making 30k a year, what you don't realize is that over a 10-year period, your friends who have traditional jobs can almost guarantee that their income would have increased. However, as a creator, that is not necessarily the case. There are many creators who have been able to make more and more and more as the year goes on, but as a creator, income isn't as stable. One wrong tweet and all your money could be gone.
Yep, and you can easily be banned from these platforms at the drop of a hat. Also, one thing you have to understand, it's so much better to have a skill set and have motion going on in the real world outside of social media. Having a skill set is going to be imperative to longevity in life. Because like I said, you could come on social media, you could get a quick 15 minutes of fame, and maybe you make, let's just say you have a year or 2, 3 years where you're making 10, 15 grand a month. But then after that, it dries up. And you have no other skills to fall back on in the real world. And also now, you got to think about it. You're used to making money from your living room. You're used to making money from your bed.
Honestly, I think it's people that look down on that. I think it's just a loss of perspective. I think it's just closed-minded. If you're somebody that looks down on somebody that works a 9 to 5, I think it's just closed-minded. Okay, because you can be one of these people that sell a course and say you're making 100K a week. And saying, "Oh yeah, I'm making 100K a week. I don't need to work no 9 to 5." You people that are working 9 to 5s, your minds are just messed up. You don't know what you're doing. It's different if somebody's working a 9 to 5 and they keep saying for weeks, months, years on end that they want to leave the 9 to 5 and they're still there. I say that's different. Then you don't necessarily need to resort to they complete trash. But I'm saying, at that point you call it out, right? What do you really want? What do you really want out of your life? At that point, you gotta call them out on their bullshit. But it's different if somebody's working a 9 to 5 and you got these influencers or some of these people that are saying, look at all these damn robots, but look at all these bots, but they don't know what they got going on with themselves. They're just driving blindlessly to a job that doesn't even care about them. Bro, you can look at this from a completely different perspective, man. You making courses, you doing your videos, you doing your meetings with people that are trying to fix a problem for themselves. Do they care about you personally? No, bro, they're trying to fix a goddamn problem. They're paying you X amount of dollars to fix a problem for them. The same thing that when you look at it from a perspective of if you're somebody who's driving to work, maybe the company doesn't care about them so much per se, but you can look at it from that perspective. But at the same time, they're paying you for a service that you are providing. They're paying you for your time to give them the work that they're asking you to do. Same shit, bro. The difference is you can make a lot more money. And the difference is that depending on what it is you're doing, or depending on how much you might have of worth for yourself, then the money might be different. But it's silly, bro. I think it's really silly sometimes how I see some of these a lot of these influencers, a lot of people just look down on people that do 9 to 5. Bro, if they're happy, who cares? At the end of the day, I think that is what life is about. Find out what you enjoy doing. And you don't need to do every single thing for you to then validate your opinion of what you enjoy doing. If you find something you enjoy doing and you don't want to try nothing else, that's cool, bro. That's on you.
So it's going to be really a hard adjustment to go back and to get a 9 to 5 when you're so used to being able to monetize your life. So, you know, it's tough. You got to keep these things in mind and understand you need to have skill sets in real life.
A change in platform, moving from YouTube to TikTok, and you can lose half of your influence. A change in trends, like I remember back in the day, I used to watch a lot of natural hair stuff. I don't do any of that. I don't even have natural hair anymore. Kind of change in trend can literally have such a big impact on your income. And so what I would always advise people to do, not even just creators, but especially creators, is to one, like invest in offline businesses. So you should be taking some of that online money and putting it into things that don't rely on your influence or the amount of jobs that you have coming in for it to sell. So for example, investing in property, or even just having more traditional businesses as well that can run without your influence. Because again, you can be sick for 6 months and come back and completely lose relevance, and that can really impact your income.
I'll say this: you never want to be fully reliant on an algorithm to pay your bills. Never want to be fully reliant on an algorithm to pay your bills. That goes for YouTube. That goes for Instagram. That goes for people who do DoorDash, Uber Eats. You never want to be reliant on an algorithm.
Story of why I decided to quit being a full-time influencer after a year and get a job in corporate America.
I don't know what's in the water recently, but I've seen like 4 or 5 of these videos talking about full-time influencers going back to get corporate jobs. And this is what I think they're all getting wrong. The reasons for wanting to leave full-time influencing were pretty much the same across the board. Some people said financial reasons, but most people were making more money as a full-time influencer than in their corporate job. They just found they were getting bored. They weren't fulfilled. They didn't find themselves mentally stimulated day to day. And
also, you have to mention there was a lot of influencers during the pandemic when everyone was at home. So many more people were on social media. So advertisers were paying a lot more and they were running up a lot of money during the pandemic. Now that things have slowed down, the economy is not doing as well, the money is not there. And that's why you see these influencers going back to 9 to 5s.
quote unquote felt like they were losing brain cells. And I think that wouldn't be the case if they approached it differently. There are actual scientific reasons for this feeling of losing brain cells. Your brain is an organ, and like most other things in your body, it functions with this use it or lose it capacity. If you are not actively engaging in problem solving and rigorous thinking, your brain is not forming new neural pathways, and it starts to lose cognitive function, which can lead to things like memory loss and brain fog and the feeling of getting dumber. And truly no shade at all, but if your entire day revolves around posting an outfit or sharing a beauty product and you are not engaging in that rigorous problem solving type of thinking, you're
I think she's going way too deep into this lady. The reason why they're leaving social media is because the money has dried up. Very plain and simple. All this, they're not actively, the brains are not actively getting stimulated. It has, in my opinion, has nothing to do with that. The checks have dried up, so they got to go back to a 9 to 5. It's very simple.
Say this, but influencers are broke. Or maybe it's just me. So I'm getting a job. On my way to an interview, I'm wearing this jacket. Got my starbs. I was on TikTok and this guy said in order to stand out during a job interview, like put your resume in like a little briefcase leather holder thingy. Whatever you want to call this thing. Should I leave it open? Here 35 minutes early. Alright, you guys. I'm heading in. Wish me luck.
I mean, shout out to that brother. I hope he gets the job. Nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. Like I said, we live in a society today where people look down on 9 to 5s and people worship celebrities, entertainers, and as you can see, a lot of them are not doing as well as you think they are.
I'm not afraid to say that I'm broke. I'm not afraid to say that I literally just sat in this hotel room that I just spent $300 on because I missed my flight and cried my eyes out. I'm not afraid to say that I'm struggling in life. I'm not afraid.
You don't even realize you're doing a lot more work than you would be doing at a 9 to 5. You're doing a lot more work and you write it off as, oh yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm working for myself, all this BS, until it hits you and you realize how fatigued you are doing the same shit and you burn out. Balance is hard to find. Sometimes it gets thrown out the window. Things aren't always what they seem. But let me know what y'all think below. If you're a content creator yourself, drop your comments, and that's it, bro.